Welcome to the 1310 podcast, where I have one guest, we ask them 3 questions, and we try to accomplish it in under 10 minutes. Today, we are very fortunate to have Dr. Richard Greenlee. He has a very interesting background, Union Local graduate, and we are excited to talk to him. Dr. Greenlee, how are you?
I'm good.
So you graduated from Union Local, what year?
1972.
1972. So I've gotten a chance to know you a little bit over the course of time. You were actually my wife's social work professor.
Yes, I
And so I have some firsthand knowledge. You were by far her favorite teacher, and I would guess that's true with a lot of your former students.
Well, I hope so. I try my best.
I know that you do. You do a great job. So let's jump right in. Growing up in rural Ohio, how did it shape your perspective? Was there a moment where you knew, social work, education, this is where I want to be?
Well, times were different in those days, of course, in schools where there wasn't really much talk about careers kind of thing. And the only careers I knew were seeing teachers at school, coaches, and coal miners, which my dad was. And I really didn't have much of a perspective of any kind of work and what you would be doing. And that really didn't happen until I joined the Army. And when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, I took these tests. They said, you've done very well on these aptitude tests, and what would you like to be? And to cut a long story short, he came up with the idea of being a social work psychology specialist in the Army.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do they do? And he said, they help people. And I thought, this was not a complex decision-making process. I thought, well, that sounds like a good thing. And so I just said I would do it. And he says, if you sign up for 3 years, you don't, at that time you had control for the first year where you would go. And he suggested Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and it was a great place. I worked on the psychiatric wards and had a great mentor as a social work officer who helped me understand the profession. And he was my role model for how to behave, how to understand a lot of things in life, because I was only 18 years old, obviously, and trying to grow up. So I didn't go to college right away. I went in the Army 3 years.
So when you grow up in a rural area, sometimes you don't get exposed to a lot of things. And when you joined the Army, it broadened your horizons. You met different people, and you realized what you were capable of.
Oh, I tell people within weeks I flew on a plane, I rode on a train, I got a bus thing. I grew up in a house with no running water in an outhouse.
Wow.
We didn't have much money. We had, coal stoves for heat. I had enough, when I went in the Army, I had enough clothes to put, and not really even fill up a small suitcase.
Wow.
And that was it. And it didn't take long, though. The Army gives you uniforms. I had all the clothes I needed.
Folded and pressed.
That I was going to need during that period of time. But I was so grateful. It opened up my eyes to a whole world that existed that I did not even know existed.
So one thing that you said when you were talking about how you ended up choosing a career in social work, you mentioned that somebody told you that the job helped people. And that stood out to me more than really anything that you said. Tell me why that phrase, it helps people, drew you to this career.
Well, I think that, when I came to school here, there were many days you wore the same clothes to bed because you didn't have that many clothes anyway, and the heat. My room was on the second floor. You had a little 12-inch grate. You got whatever came from a coal stove below.
Yeah.
It was not good. I came here, and this was a warm, safe place, but I was completely disconnected from what was going on. I'm hungry. I don't have any vision of what I can be, and I think when I got the opportunity then to be able to help other people, I understood a lot of things. In social work, we talk about, and this kind of goes into what we were talking about in a second question, but we talk about a good person and environment fit. Well, I came here to school and no one knew what my environment was like.
Yeah.
And I'm alienated from everybody. I don't have money to participate in things, so I'm always telling people I don't want to do things. It's not because I didn't want to do them. I didn't have the money to do them. I didn't have transportation to get to those kinds of things. So some of what might have seemed like I didn't want to do things, it was just me covering up for myself
Protecting
all the time
yourself. Yeah.
and my family in that process. So I didn't participate in things. We talk about, Jermaine talks about a good person environment fit where you have good connections to other people, you have a sense of competence, you have a sense of self-direction, and that all leads to good self-esteem. I didn't have any of those things. None of them. Completely. So when you talk about a good person environment fit, I had a no fit. I felt totally alienated from the world. This place, I wondered, what are we even talking about here? I wasn't motivated to study. My grades were probably terrible.
Hungry.
Hungry.
Running water.
Yeah. I mean, this seemed irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going to go to college. I didn't know anybody who went to college. I'm the first generation high school graduate.
Wow. A lot of people say first generation college. You're
Right.
first generation high school.
Yeah. My dad went to the 7th grade. My mother almost graduated, but she quit when she was a senior in high school. And so that, I didn't have any role models. Like, I never knew anybody who went to college. I never knew anybody who went to High University Eastern. I didn't know what they do over there. I had no concept.
And that's amazing. You go from, as a high school student, not even knowing what they do over there,
right,
to running the place.
I know, which is pretty weird.
I mean, so you talk about a success story. And Dr. Greenlee, such a background, we're going to extend this conversation by about 5 minutes or so, because I think what he has to say is so important for some of our students who are dealing with the same things. So you go through this. I mean, every metric says you shouldn't have succeeded.
Right. You want to talk about at-risk youth.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm it.
You had every marker, every indicator. So you go through that, you join the Army. They show that there's other opportunities for you. You take the aptitude test. You're very capable.
Mm-hmm.
You go on to be a social worker, psychologist. So you've gone through all that. Now you're interim dean. You're working with students that probably have similar experiences to you. How has that experience that you had shaped how you help other kids from the Ohio Valley?
Well, I seek out those students. I mean, that is my purpose. Frankl talks about an existential purpose in life. Well, my purpose in life has been met.
Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
I think some of our kids have read that book.
I love that book. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was as a therapist, that's one of my philosophies of trying to help people discover what that is. Because when you don't have that, then you run around with depression and anxiety and you don't fit. Again, you don't have that good person environment fit. So I feel like I've always been the perfect fit for those kinds of students that are struggling. I know what that's like. And I want them to succeed. And so I think for me, it is, I spend a lot of time, like at OU Eastern, reaching out to students. If I see them sitting in a corner by themselves, I go over, sit down, and start talking to them. Say, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? What are you studying? What do you want to be? I mean, I just have an impromptu podcast with them right there with no podcast.
And the things we talked about before that you shared, we all protect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to admit that we don't have the means to do things.
Right.
So we come up with reasons why we can't.
Yep.
And taking things, I think a lot of times teachers or educators or even myself, well, we assign labels. That person's lazy. That person's antisocial. Yep. Without ever peeling back the layers of the onion to see what's going on.
I learned a long ago in clinical social work is that how the person's acting, don't take that may not be what they are.
Yeah. Because
they are doing exactly that. When people get angry or they push you back, maybe that's not really who they are, but that's what they are, trying to protect themselves. And so you have to gently try to uncover all that kind of stuff. And I feel for us, my role is to be out there. Come Monday, we're going to be giving out ice scrapers. I will be at the top of the hill at 8 o'clock, waiting for every student to come out of that parking lot, welcoming them to campus, talking to them, having little conversations, and giving them this ice scraper to be safe during the winter time with their cars and their windshields. It's just one way to literally break the ice and develop a relationship with them. I want them to know I don't sit in my office that much. I constantly go to the different spots where they sit on campus and try to strike up conversations, and want them to know that you can come and talk to me if you need to. I'm not just some kind of title in this room that nobody ever comes in to see. So I've always been that way. To me, that was all part of the mission from the very beginning of helping people.
Servant leadership.
And making yourself visible and available.
Yeah.
I never felt like I didn't feel like I could go to other people and talk to them. So it just all stayed with me, until until I got in the Army did I actually feel like I had some people that could be mentors that I could talk to.
I think back, I know we kind of started this saying you were my wife's professor, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I met you, I felt like I already knew you because of how many positive things my wife said.
Yep.
And it was about how you made her feel. You made her feel confident. You made her feel cared about. You wanted to see her succeed.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just her, it was all of your students. And it meant the world to her, and I can't imagine how much of an impact you had along the way.
Well, I feel that that's your purpose. If you don't do that, my job, I never saw it as just go to class, teach, and go home. You know, it was never that. In fact, I loved when we don't do advising directly faculty anymore. It's done by a professional advisor. But I liked that role when we had that at OU, being an advisor too, because that's where I really got to know the students, and that's where I got to know their challenges, and that's where I could set up a system that could help them get through that. And I tell the students, if you disappear from my class, you can expect I'm going to be calling you because I want to know why you're not there. That doesn't happen in a lot of big places.
And they might not have had anybody in their lives that ever held them accountable in that way.
Yeah, and if you're not doing well, I'm going to confront you about that too. What's going on? Why is this paper not done on time? Why is it so poorly done? What can we do to help you do better?
And accountability is about care. If you're checking on somebody,
absolutely.
It means you want to see them succeed.
And I feel like for a long time, I say that I think I was invisible here. I came to school, I didn't cause trouble. I think I was friendly, you know, but I wasn't outgoing. And I came and I went. And then I was gone.
So I think that's really interesting. That leads into our last question here. You know, somebody like yourself, you know, that came from very little. I know the story of your dad, how hard he worked to try to support you. You felt like you weren't seen in high school. But then we zoom out, you know, 30, 40, 50 years. Look at the impact you've had across not just the valley, but all the way down to Athens.
Mm-hmm.
When you were going through some tough moments when you were in high school, what would you tell yourself now about the impact that you've had?
Well, I would have never imagined it was going to happen. In fact, I had no imagination. I had no vision of what it could be. And I think that's so important to give people an opportunity to explore so many different things. I would tell myself first, I wish I had not kept everything to myself. I think there were faculty here that I liked, English faculty, and I didn't overperform, certainly not in class, but I liked them and I enjoyed them. And I think that today I would say to myself, be more bold and tell them maybe what's going on. And not that they could have necessarily done something. I think it would have been better for somebody to know who I really was and what I was experiencing. I would say be bold. I would say take more risk. I became very kind of risk aversive. And you know what the Army taught me? I got in there in basic training. I come in as an E1, basic bottom, you know. And before I left, I was made a squad leader because they could see something in me that nobody else had told me I could be.
But you didn't even see in yourself.
No, I didn't, not at all. They said, you've demonstrated this leadership. So they pulled me out of the ranks and sent me to a week-long leadership school. I went back into the basic training unit, became a squad leader, you know, and pretty soon I was even marching the platoon, on our different maneuvers. And all that started to say to me, you can do this, you know, and the people respect what you do. And I worked harder and harder. I got reinforced and got promoted as that went on. And all that gave me the confidence that I could do other things and that I could control some of my life. I didn't feel I was in control of anything in high school. You know, we were just happy if we were surviving, literally.
So, I mean, if you look at your background, you found somebody that showed you what existed. You developed competency. You developed confidence from that competency, and then you used it to go out and help other people.
Yeah, and then I started feeling good about myself, that I was worthy. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't feel like I was worthy. I mean, that was the whole point coming along. I didn't feel I was good enough. I didn't think I was smart enough. And everywhere along the line, I started to feel, it's interesting. I think this is an important point for students. Even when I succeeded at undergraduate school and graduated with honors from the University of Maryland, because I started there and the Army had a program that would help you military folks starting out at night. Then when I applied to graduate school at the University of Pittsburgh for my master's of social work, I started feeling like I wasn't going to be good enough to hang with these people. Yeah. You know, it came back again. But then I'd get into it and I'd say, well, I'm as good as these folks. And when I went to get my doctorate at Ohio State, once again, I started thinking, oh man, these people are really smart. They really have achieved things in life. I don't know if I'm good enough to get through here. And I had wonderful mentors there. And they knew about my background. My dissertation was on the working poor of Appalachian Ohio. And again, I wanted to study what I had come from. And I wanted to study, it's all about resilience in the end.
Yeah.
You know, my parents had resilience. They were my role models. You know, my mother could have crawled up in bed and just given up, but she never did. She took care of her children. And my dad went to work whenever he possibly could. And, you know, a lot of respect for them. They gave me the work ethic I have, because you got to have that to toss the rest of it along.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of wrap everything up and thank Dr. Greenlee for being here. And if you're a student in our school or a parent checking out this podcast, I think he's an example of you can overcome your circumstances, find people that can show you what exists in the world, develop a skill, and then use that skill if you want to develop purpose to help other people, because that's what it's all about. Dr. Richard Greenlee, one of the best professors, one of the kindest people, and we're proud to call him a Union Local graduate. Dr. Greenlee, thank you for doing this for us.
As you say in your values you have here, that was an old Air Force thing, aim high too. So.
Yeah, we want to set good goals for ourselves.
That's right,
yeah,
absolutely.
Strong goals.
You got to set goals.
Yep, so signing off, if you yourself are a Union Local graduate or know somebody who would like to be on the podcast, we want to highlight what you're doing. Jets think, Jets care, Jets aim high. Go Jets.